And at what point did you determine that this is as good as it can get, or this is as far as you can go? When did that bar, when did that standard get set? And why did it get set that way? In my book, I use the example of the elephant and the rope. And the story goes, there's a guy who's walking by a circus, and he sees this massive elephant, and there's a rope around the elephant's leg, and on the other end of the rope it's just attached to this stake that's just hammered into the ground, and the elephant isn't moving. So the guy goes to the animal handler, and he says, hey, why does the elephant just stay there? Obviously, it's big enough and strong enough to just rip that stake out of the ground and just go wherever it wants to go. And handler says, well, when they're babies, we use the same stake and the same rope. And while they're babies, the rope and stake are strong enough to keep the elephant where it's at. And so the elephant struggles and pulls and tugs, but it's not strong enough to move it. So therefore, after a bit of time, the elephant stops trying. It's like, yeah, I can't go anywhere. So it just gives up. The elephant becomes conditioned to that being just reality for it. So even though the elephant continues to grow and get stronger and bigger, that ceiling had been set and established. So as soon as that elephant gets attached to that rope and that stake, it just doesn't even attempt to move. That story paints that picture very clearly to me, anyway. There are other studies, more scientific studies, with fleas, like the bug, little annoying, ratty little fleas, itchy, right? A worthless creature. Fuck we doing with fleas, man? Just a total waste. But fleas can jump. They've got this incredible range of how high they can jump. Things this big, legs are microscopic, can't even see it, but boom, that thing goes to engage in a jump, and it's like insane high, especially for how big it is. So I don't know how high a normal flea can jump. Let's just say that it's, 12 inches is what it can jump. So what scientists will do, and they've done this, is they take a bunch of fleas and they put them into a jar, like a masonry jar. And they close the lid and they leave the fleas in there. So the fleas are jumping and they're smacking themselves on the lid of the jar. And they do it over and over and over and over again. They'll put like 100 fleas in this container. And they'll keep jumping and jumping and jumping, and they'll just be bouncing off the top of the jar. Well, eventually, after a certain amount of time, the scientists can take the lid off the jar. So now it's totally free. And under normal circumstances, the flea could easily jump out of the jar. But at that point, it's become conditioned to this being its ceiling. Literally, in this example, its ceiling. So even when they remove the lid, the fleas only jump to the height of the lid, even without the lid being there anymore. That's it. They've just become conditioned to, well, that's my ceiling. So even though I know I can jump higher, even though I am gifted with the ability to jump higher than that, I'm only going to jump to that level, and that's it. And that can change the inevitable, forever lifespan of the height that flea or those fleas can jump. People, humans, we do the exact same thing. We do the exact same thing. Only there isn't a scientist that's putting us in a jar. We are the ones that are putting ourselves in the jar. We are the ones that do it. We control the lid, whether it's on or off, the height of that lid, we control it. It's entirely up to us. At some point, we have decided what our ceiling is. And it's probably multiple ceilings, socially, physically, professionally. All these different aspects of our lives, we decide what that ceiling is. When did you set that ceiling for yourself? And what is it? And why did you determine that to be where your ceiling is? Because the truth is, there is no lid of the jar. It doesn't exist. These limitations only exist in our mind. We create them. And a lot of that's done, something I talk about kind of often, a lot of that is done as a defense mechanism. Because we've tried to jump higher and have failed. And that feeling of failure, that feeling of defeat, what that does to our pride and our ego and our self-esteem, that is a massive contributing factor in determining what that ceiling is. Because if I place the ceiling lower than that, and then I continue to live within that range, then there are no expectations of me going beyond that. Because I can't. I set the limit, like the flea in the jar. It's like, this is as high as I can jump. That's it. So I'm going to stay within this range. I'm going to be operating at my capacity. This is just what we tell ourselves, even though the lid's not there. Now, sometimes that comes at the result of just losing once. Those with a little bit more resilience, a little bit more dedication, they lose 3, 4, 5, 100 times. But at some point, we decide what that ceiling is. So, for one, realize the truth. Tell yourself the truth. That ceiling is created by us. We decide what our ceiling is. Recognition of that is likely going to be challenging. You got to tell yourself that hard truth. I'm the one that has set this standard. I'm the one that has set where this limit is. But once we can accept that, then we can begin to change it. Then we can change it. We realize that the only ceilings are the ones that we create for ourselves. And then beyond that is simply the willingness to push past what our previously conceived notion of what our ceiling was. The willingness to push past that, to take the risk. Go into it knowing it's going to be hard. Go into it knowing we're going to get it wrong. It's going to happen. We're going to fail. Not only is that inevitable, but it is essential, because that's where the knowledge is located. Do you know where your ceiling is? Do you know why it was created? And are you willing to accept the truth that that ceiling is self-imposed, and right now, in this exact moment, you have the ability to change that?